She still wore her wedding ring when she draped her arm around him. That caught my eye first. Not her smile, no, I hadn't seen that smile in years and it barely registered. It was the ring. Her left hand rested on the table, casual, almost careless, next to a wine glass holding something pricier than she ever let me spend on tools. Her slender, practiced fingers lightly grazed the shoulder of a man I hadn't seen in ages. James? The name struck me like dust on an old attic box you never meant to disturb. I wasn't even glancing at my phone when it happened. It buzzed face down by the remote. I was halfway through a news segment on gas prices when I grabbed it out of habit, not urgency. Then I saw it. A Facebook notification. Sarah tagged you in a photo. Odd. She hadn't tagged me in anything since our 25th anniversary, and even then it was a picture of the steak, not us. I tapped it. The screen loaded. There she was. Sarah, my wife of 30 years, laughing, all teeth, locked in eye contact with James, the guy who once slurred in a bar in '93 that she was his biggest regret. They sat at that trendy downtown bistro, the one she claimed was too noisy for us. The caption read, "Just reconnecting, rare heart." That heart emoji. It felt like the only honest part. It wasn't just reconnecting. That caption was deliberate, meant to provoke. She wanted a reaction. But she forgot something. I stopped reacting long ago. Not because I stopped caring, but because I started observing. I didn't speak, didn't text, didn't call, didn't even flinch. Instead, I leaned forward, propped my elbows on my knees, and studied the photo like it was a crime scene, because it was. Not murder. Something subtler. A betrayal so blatantly casual it didn't bother hiding. The kind of move someone makes when they think you're too weak or too clueless to notice. That's what stung. Not the whine, not the hand on his shoulder, not the smile. It was the assumption. All right, folks. Quick pause. We're aiming for 10K subscribers. If you're hooked on these tales of betrayal, smash that subscribe button and let's dive back in. The assumption that I was half dead, emotionally tamed, just a financial cosigner for the life she really wanted. That's what made me hit save on the photo. Not to confront her. I saved it like a lawyer keeps evidence or a hitman notes a license plate, with purpose, silence, precision. I clicked her profile. Dozens of likes. Her old friends, coworkers, even strangers to me. One comment read, "You two always had such spark." Heart eyes emoji. I read it twice. Clicked the commenter's name. A hairdresser, divorced, used to work with Sarah at the salon she left last year. Another comment, still the hottest pair from state. Didn't know the guy, but Sarah liked it. I stood, walked to the kitchen, poured decaf, caffeine makes her anxious now, and sat by the window. I didn't scroll more. I didn't need to see what else she posted. The message was clear: you're not exciting anymore, David. You're background noise in your own home. A placeholder until I feel alive again. Here's the thing. Live with someone for 3 decades and you learn. You learn when they lie. You learn what spontaneous or "we just ran into each other" really means. You learn how they avoid your gaze when deciding whether to sleep beside you or fake exhaustion from work. Most of all, you learn their tells. Sarah over-explains when guilty, under-explains when she wants to be caught. I took a final sip of coffee, returned to the living room, and opened a laptop folder I hadn't touched in over a year, labeled Maple Grove Charity Gala 2019. She'd forged my signature on a donation pledge, called it a surprise tribute. Flattering, sure, but when I found the email thanking me for a $2,500 donation I never made, I started saving things. Quietly. Methodically. Not because I knew I'd need them, but because my gut whispered, "You're being played." So now, 3 years later, when that just reconnecting photo hit the timeline, it wasn't a shock. It was confirmation. I looked at the photo again. James's hand was out of frame, but I knew it rested on her thigh. Not because I saw it, but because Sarah's smile had that curve, the one she only used when she thought no one was watching. Too bad I was. The front door opened at 6:52 p.m. punctual, as always. Even her lies kept a schedule. I didn't turn from the sink as she walked in. Water ran over the plates from my solo dinner, grilled chicken and green beans. The kind she used to say made me smell like a gym coach with arthritis, but also the kind she stopped cooking. Her purse hit the entryway bench with that familiar thud, followed by an exhale like she'd just survived a war. Then her voice. Guess who I bumped into today? Sing-song, rehearsed, casual. I didn't turn. She stepped into the kitchen, opened the fridge like nothing had shifted. Her perfume hit me, not the one for errands or work, but the one for garden parties, galas, dinners with out-of-town friends. Not a spontaneous lunch. James, she said, voice light as air. From college. Remember him? No mention of the photo, the post, the heart emoji. Just James. I kept washing the plate, rinsed it twice, maybe 3 times, set it in the rack, and grabbed another. Oh, I said, flat as pavement. Yeah, he was in town for some business thing. We ran into each other at Vine and Oak. Isn't that crazy? Crazy. Her word. That's how she framed 30 years of marriage and one freshly posted betrayal. Crazy. Like bumping into an old friend at the post office. Like accidentally texting your ex in a low-cut dress. I nodded, eyes down. Sounds like luck. She leaned on the counter, her stage. I could feel her watching, waiting for my usual questions. What did you talk about? How's he doing? Did he mention his wife? But I didn't play along. I dried my hands, wiped the counter, opened the dishwasher, and shifted 3 mugs for the small comfort of order. Still, nothing from her. No apology. No mention of the photo. No, maybe I should have warned you before posting something that looks suspicious as hell. She was doing what manipulators do when they think they're still in control, acting normal to make you doubt your gut. But she didn't know I'd moved beyond instinct. That night, after she went upstairs to rest her eyes, I opened the laptop and dug into the folder I'd started building when things first felt off, around the time of her sudden networking dinners and the wine club that never brought home a bottle. Inside was a world she thought she'd hidden, PDFs of receipts for restaurants we never visited together, one for a bed and breakfast she called a team-building retreat, a scanned airline ticket in her junk mail, first class, one way, canceled 2 days later. Booked under her maiden name. I didn't need answers. I needed patterns. I found them in hotel confirmations, Uber receipts from places 20 miles out of town, a saved voicemail from someone named Mark saying he missed her taste. That was 2 years old. She called it spam. I kept it anyway. My hand hovered over the trackpad as I opened a spreadsheet I'd built, tabs by month, expenses that didn't match our joint statements. She never noticed the tiny garage camera I installed after her 3rd late-night yoga class. She didn't check if her phone still synced to her old desktop. She didn't cover her tracks because she thought I wasn't moving. She forgot I used to fix signals on freight rail systems, spotting failures before they caused crashes. I wasn't raging. I wasn't storming the house demanding answers. I was reviewing. Calmly. Because when someone insults you, not just emotionally, but intellectually, when they bet their future on your blindness, there's a quiet satisfaction in proving them wrong. That night, as she slept upstairs with her secrets, I found one more file, an old email chain with her and a lawyer, a draft prenup she'd called, just in case, when we were still playing fair. She never signed it. Neither did I. But she kept it, and that said everything. She'd always had a backup plan. She just didn't think I'd ever make one of my own. The coffee was awful, burnt, thin, probably brewed through a rag. But Thomas liked this diner because they left you alone. No music, no fake smiles, no waitresses checking in just as you're about to say something real. Just booths, chipped mugs, and the low hum of 2 retired cops debating lawn care at the corner table. Thomas slid into the booth across from me, dressed in his usual navy blazer, white Oxford, and the look of a man who'd seen humanity's worst and billed by the hour to clean it up. His tie was crooked. That meant he trusted me. So, he said, stirring his tea like it personally offended him, you finally pulled the trigger. I didn't answer right away. I watched the steam curl from my eggs. No appetite. Never had one when I was planning. She posted a photo, I said. He didn't ask what kind. He didn't have to. Thomas knew Sarah. He was at our wedding, gave a toast joking I was marrying way out of my league. Everyone laughed, even me. She tagged me in it. Her and James. Just reconnecting. Heart emoji. I took a sip of coffee. Didn't even switch her perfume. Thomas raised an eyebrow. Bold move. She came home all smiles, acting like it was nothing. He nodded slowly. They always do. It's not about the act. It's about the show. We sat quietly for a bit. The waitress dropped off toast and more awful coffee. Thomas didn't touch either. Finally, I said, I'm not divorcing her. Thomas didn't blink. Didn't think you would. I'm just setting the story straight. That earned a smile. Not friendly. Not quite a smirk. Just a slight lip curve. Thomas's version of a standing ovation. He set his spoon down and leaned in a touch. You want a splash or a tsunami? I didn't answer right away. I thought about that laptop folder, the dates, screenshots, receipts that told a story even she'd probably forgotten crafting. I thought about her school board meetings, her charity events, those self-righteous speeches about integrity and transparency in local politics. I thought about the voicemail from Mark and the canceled one-way flight. And I thought about her smile in that photo, that smug, flirty teenage grin she hadn't aimed at me since flip phones were cutting edge. Enough, I said, meeting Thomas's gaze, to shake her world. He nodded once. Got it. Wake-up call it is. That was Thomas's way. He didn't ask why. He asked how big. He'd handled mayors caught with interns in hotel rooms, CEOs who sent the wrong text to the wrong number. He once defused a revenge porn scandal with a puppy adoption video and a teary local TV confession. I'm not asking you to fix this, I said. Good, he shot back. She doesn't need fixing. She needs perspective. I tilted my head. Explain. You don't punish someone like Sarah by shouting. You don't kick her out. You shift how she's seen. Women like her, their whole life is built on image, on optics. Crack that mirror and they crumble on their own. I leaned back, staring past him out the window. A school bus rolled by, kids shouting. I pictured Sarah's face when she opened Facebook or LinkedIn or the town's community board. I imagined her scrambling to explain, to charm her way out, and watching it fail. Slowly, publicly, just enough to burn where she couldn't soothe it. What do you need? I asked. Thomas pulled a small leather notebook from his coat, his version of a blade. Send me the files. I'll handle the release. One on social, one on a forum, one through an anonymous tip. But stay clean. You're the wronged husband, the victim, not the judge. I smiled for the first time that morning. Already done. Files are labeled, time-stamped. No edits, no fluff. Thomas gave a low whistle. You've been at this a while. I finished my eggs. She planned on being adored. I planned on being remembered. Thomas stood. You're not my first husband, but you're the first who grinned through it. He left, toast untouched, check tucked under his mug. I lingered, soaking in the diner's hum. It was calm now, quiet, like the hush before a distant siren. I didn't want to ruin her. I just wanted her to know I was still here. And this time I wasn't cheering quietly from the sidelines. It was just past 10:30 a.m. when I settled in the study with my second coffee and opened my laptop like it was a loaded gun. And maybe for the first time it was. The house was still. Sarah had left early for a volunteer brunch, probably another room of wives silently sizing up each other's bags and spouses. I didn't ask where. Didn't need to. I already had the only address that mattered, her reputation. I opened Facebook first. Scrolled past a local farmer's market post, some grandkid photos from folks I half recalled from church. Then I stopped. A photo Sarah posted 3 days ago. Our porch, her hand cradling a wine glass, captioned, "Thankful for a quiet life." That same hand was in the photo with James. The irony was almost art. I clicked Create Post. Then I dug into the folder, the digital one labeled Prudence, nested under bland names like Tax Files and Bills 2018. Inside was the file, an email from the Maple Grove Children's Literacy Fund thanking Mr. and Mrs. David Harper for their generous $2,500 pledge and confirming the signed donation form. Except I never signed it. Sarah did. She even mimicked the looping D I ditched years ago after a wrist injury. She was that meticulous, that brazen. Back then, she called it a harmless fib for a good cause. I remember staring her down when I found out. "I don't like my name on things I didn't approve," I'd said. She laughed. "You should be honored. You get the praise." I didn't push back then, just like I didn't push back about the photo with James. But today, she'd learned silence isn't defeat. Sometimes it's a fuse. I took a screenshot of the email, attached the scanned PDF with the forged signature, cropped it clean. No rant, no venom. Then I posted it. No filter, no context, just a caption. Sometimes reconnecting means facing consequences. I hit post. It went live instantly. No tags, no mentions, but I knew she'd see it. She checked my profile more than she checked our bank account. I didn't stop there. I opened LinkedIn next. Her digital shrine, her resume buffed like a show car's hood. She wielded our shared last name like a badge, touting joint charity work in bios and interviews. I posted the same screenshot there. Different caption aimed at the corporate crowd. Representation without consent isn't leadership, it's deception. Hashtag accountability counts. Then came the final touch, our town's community Facebook group, Maple Grove Connect. Neighbors, PTA members, brunch enthusiasts, and the occasional spat over Christmas light rules. Sarah was a star there. She wrote the monthly Women Who Serve column. She curated event photo albums. She once sparked a 40-comment debate over whether macaroni salad was too basic for the Memorial Day picnic. I posted it there too. Screenshot, caption, and waited. The first comment hit in under 10 minutes from Linda Hayes, Sarah's Pilates pal and fellow school board member. "Sarah, can you explain this? That's your signature on the form, isn't it?" Then 3 likes, then 8. Then a comment from Tom Baxter, the guy who wore flip-flops to town hall. "Didn't you get a plaque from the mayor for that donation?" I sipped my coffee, hit refresh. "Oof, not a great look, Sarah." Then silence. Then her sister messaged me privately, "What are you doing?" I didn't reply. I just screenshotted that too. By noon, the post had over 30 comments, some defenders, mostly polite confusion, and plenty of people acting like they didn't know exactly what she'd done. But they knew because I'd said just enough. Just enough to spark the flame. Just enough to watch her carefully crafted facade start to crack. Sarah hadn't called yet, but I could sense her watching, her mind racing to figure out how I got that email, if I still had the original, if I'd shared it with anyone official, if this was the start or the finish. She was probably practicing lines, guessing my next step, wondering if this was revenge or exposure. And I hadn't even raised my voice. The first call came during her volunteer brunch. The second interrupted her order of eggs Benedict and a mimosa. The third she ignored, but by the fourth, fifth, and sixth names she usually only saw at galas or spring barbecues, Sarah started to feel it. That quiet panic. She tried to brush it off, flashing her polished smile, the one she used to deflect without seeming rude. But the questions kept coming. "Sarah, is everything okay with David? I saw something odd on Facebook. Are you okay? Was that really your signature on that pledge?" One woman across the table leaned in, voice low like it was juicy gossip. "Your husband posted about a forgery. Did you see it?" Sarah smiled too wide, laughed too loud. "Oh, that." She flicked her hand like swatting a fly. "Just a mix-up. He's been sorting old files. You know how retired guys get." Someone gave a polite chuckle. Someone else didn't. "I thought you said that donation was your anniversary surprise." A woman muttered, eyes on her phone. Sarah's fork paused midair. That's when she excused herself to the restroom and didn't return. No goodbye, just straight out of the cafe, into her car, and home like the house was ablaze. which in a way it was. When she stormed through the front door, her phone was buzzing so hard it seemed ready to bolt. She charged into the living room like a frazzled attorney. David! I was at the dining table, calm, skimming the local paper. The front page was about speed bumps on Oak Street, but the real cracks in this town started with a status update. She marched in, gripping her phone like it might explode. What is this? I looked up from the paper. Morning. Don't act clueless. What's this nonsense you posted about the charity email? I set the paper down, folded it neatly, and leaned back. You posted James, I said evenly. I posted something too. That's not the same, David. I tilted my head. You sure? You just smeared my name. People are texting me. My boss called during brunch. I raised an eyebrow. Was he at the brunch? Or just scrolling Facebook? Don't get smart. Not trying. Just noting the balance. She paced like a wolf sniffing for danger but missing the source. You made it look like I committed a crime. You made it look like you were on a date. Her mouth opened, shut. She stared, eyes wide, almost offended, like I'd broken the rules of a game she didn't think I knew we were playing. You're making a mountain out of nothing, she said, voice climbing. That post was harmless. And yet, your phone's been ringing nonstop for an hour. She glanced at it as if seeing it anew. More notifications, missed calls, a voicemail from the school board's treasurer, a DM from her cousin, a tag removed from the Maple Grove Connect post. Deleted, she said, sounding desperate. Which one? I asked. The one with James or the one with the signature? Her face reddened. This is petty, she snapped. You're airing this publicly. Why? I stood, walked past her to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, took a sip, and turned to her with the same steady tone I'd used when her dad said I wasn't quite what he'd pictured for her. Because I'm done with the private story, the one where I'm the idiot and you're the misunderstood star. You made a move, Sarah. So I made one too. She didn't speak. She stared into space, that dazed look people get when their spin starts to fail, when they realize the consequences aren't hypothetical anymore. They're real. And by the way, I added, heading back to my paper, you might want to check LinkedIn. Someone asked if that mayor's award was tied to the same donation. She looked like she might faint. I sat down, turned to the sports section, and added, almost as an afterthought, you know what they say, integrity starts at home. The email subject line hit her inbox like a punch. Urgent. Special meeting scheduled recent public post. Sarah read it 3 times, as if rereading could dull the sting. Didn't. Below were replies she couldn't unsee. This is troubling. We can't ignore appearances. Not with elections next month. Let's contain this before the papers do. By the time she reached the end, her hands were shaking. Not with guilt, Sarah didn't do guilt. With exposure. It was a different kind of fear altogether. She spent the next hour drafting the same email. First indignant, then remorseful, then coolly evasive. Nothing worked. Finally, she snapped the laptop shut and gazed out at the garden. Where the rose bushes David used to trim had sprawled wild, smothering the daisies she'd planted for her Instagram stories. By 4 p.m., the Zoom call was on. 6 board members, 2 lawyers, and a rep from the mayor's office, who stayed silent but scribbled notes like her pen was a blade. Sarah tried to start with charm, thanking everyone for their time, tossing in a self-deprecating chuckle about how things can snowball. It fell flat like a stone in broth. The chairwoman, Ellen Carver, a retired principal with zero patience for fluff, cut her off. This isn't about social media, she said, adjusting her glasses. This is about forgery. Sarah blinked. It was years ago, and it's been blown out of proportion. The silence that followed was heavy. A younger board member, Nina, who usually stayed quiet, spoke next. Sarah, it's not just the signature. It's the optics. Your name's tied to everything: school events, budget votes, diversity initiatives. You're not separate from the board's reputation anymore. Sarah sat taller, defensive. That donation benefited the children's fund. It was in the board's interest to back it. The mayor's rep finally spoke, her voice sharp and measured. Sarah, you used your husband's name without permission on a legal pledge. That's not support. That's fraud. Sarah's jaw clenched. No one would have known if David hadn't made it public. Ellen cut in. Precisely. That silenced her. The meeting didn't last much longer. It didn't need to. They didn't want her prosecuted. They didn't want headlines. They wanted distance, clean, quiet, swift. We'd prefer you resign, Ellen said plainly, gracefully. Before this spreads. Call it personal reasons, family matters, whatever works. Sarah didn't respond. Sarah, someone prompted. She unmuted slowly. Her mouth opened, then closed. She knew bargaining wasn't on the table. This was banishment dressed in civility, and she had no vote. I understand, she said, voice faint. She logged off without a goodbye. By 6 p.m., a local blog had the story: school board member resigns amid misconduct claims. No names yet, but everyone in Maple Grove knew. The photo with James was gone, quietly deleted, but not before someone screenshotted it and slapped a banner across it: Integrity counts. It was back on the Maple Grove Connect group by supper time. David was on the porch when she got home, calm, sipping iced tea like a man watching a storm brew on the horizon. She didn't speak, just brushed past him into the house. The door's slam didn't make him blink. He stirred his tea, glanced at the fading sky, and let the quiet finish the job. The woman in the photo, the one with the laugh, the lipstick, the illusion of control, was gone. In her place, someone finally facing the fallout. The dishwasher hummed its usual after-dinner tune when Sarah let out a sharp, irritated huff from her phone. I didn't look up from the newspaper. She'd been unusually silent that morning, no flood of texts, no forced chatter, no drama, just the occasional tap of her nail on the screen and a tightening grip on her coffee mug. Then came the words, "Why did the water bill bounce?" I turned the page slowly. Sorry. She shoved her phone toward me like it was evidence. We're past due on autopay. It bounced, she said. Says insufficient funds. I folded the paper with care, then gave her my full attention. That's odd, I said, with just enough fake curiosity. You'd think a two-income household could keep the water running. She stared, blinking. Is this a glitch? Did the account get compromised? I reached for my coffee. Nope, not compromised. Then what's going on, David? I sipped, letting the pause stretch just enough to make her fidget. I moved my deposits. What? Changed banks. Yesterday. Her mouth parted slightly like when I'd surprise her with a weekend trip. Except now, the only thing escaping was her grip on things. You moved your paychecks? She asked, as if I'd admitted to buying a private island. I nodded. And the savings. And the investment dividends. But why? I leaned forward a bit. Didn't want to muddle our finances, I said, voice steady. Figured you had enough to juggle with your social reunions, your community duties, and, of course, your damage control. That's not funny. I wasn't laughing. She looked at me like I was a stranger. And maybe I was. The version of me she knew, the passive, reliable, financially predictable husband, had been quietly buried sometime between her brunch meltdown and that emergency Zoom shaming. But you can't just move money like that without telling me. I shrugged. Actually, I can. The joint account was for convenience, not obligation. Nothing was legally tied to it. Just routine. You're being vicious, David. Vicious? I echoed, testing the word. You mean like forging someone's signature on a public donation for clout? Or tagging yourself in a flirty lunch with your ex while your husband's at home unclogging the sink? Her cheeks flushed. Not from shame, Sarah didn't do shame. From panic. From realizing how much she'd banked on assumption, on momentum. On me never stirring the pot. And now she was sinking in her own still waters. Is this about payback? She asked. Because if this is some kind of punishment. It's not payback, I interrupted. It's boundaries. You remember those, right? Like the ones you ignored with a pen and a fake pledge form. She stood there, breath shallow, posture stiff like a statue nobody commissioned. She looked less like a wife and more like a politician caught in the wrong meeting at the wrong hour. Then she said it, the go-to-line manipulators lean on when the ground shifts. I don't feel safe with you right now. And there it was. Not sorry. Not I get it. Just another stab at rewriting the story with her as the victim, the wronged one. I set down my mug and stood. You're right, I said softly. You don't feel safe because, for the first time in years, you're not the one holding the reins. Then I walked past her toward the study, toward the laptop where the rest of the plans were quietly falling into place. And for the first time since that heart emoji photo, Sarah didn't follow. The first message hit at 9:10 p.m. from our oldest, Nathan. Dad, what's going on? Then his brother Caleb, 2 minutes later, Mom's flooding our phones. Everything okay? I was in the garage, sifting through an old toolbox Sarah once called a junk pile with bolts. The smell of motor oil and pine was oddly grounding, more than any corner of the house had been lately. I let the texts linger, let the screen fade. They were good men, grown now. Nathan crunching numbers in Seattle, Caleb still cycling through majors in Chicago like he was dodging reality. They adored their mom. And until this week, they probably thought we were just one of those dull marriages that coasted on habit and shared grocery trips. When I finally grabbed the phone, I typed 2 words, ask her. That's it. No details, no sermon. I wanted her to face it. No sidestepping, no spin, just to sit in the mess she'd ignited. It didn't go smoothly. The family group chat, once a mix of jokes, check-ins, and holiday plans, erupted like a wildfire. Sarah, boys, don't trust everything online. Your dad's overreacting. It was a misunderstanding. I didn't mean for this to go viral. It's messy. Call me. No response. 10 minutes later, Sarah, Nathan. Caleb. Please. I need to explain. Your dad's painting me as a villain. Still nothing. She shifted gears. Sarah, your dad's punishing me. He's struggling. Maybe it's stress or something deeper. He's not himself. I lean back and reread that one. The classic dodge, when the truth doesn't bend, question the accuser's mind and plant just enough doubt to rewrite the story. I could hear it in her words, panic dressed as worry, the same tone she used at dinner parties to steer conversations I'd started. I didn't reply. Neither did they. The chat stayed dead for nearly 30 minutes. The only flicker was that Sarah is typing, dot pulsing like a faltering distress signal. Then another message dropped. Sarah, I'm sorry if it seemed like I did something wrong. That photo was nothing, just lunch. He knows that. This isn't what it looks like. I need to talk. She sent a voice message next, 48 seconds. The first 5 were her breathing. The rest, a jumbled mix of half-truths and emotional gymnastics. Then Nathan finally typed one line, why didn't you just tell Dad the truth? She didn't answer. She left the chat 5 minutes later. No big exit. No angry farewell. Just gone. I stared at the screen a bit longer, watching the quiet settle like ash. There it was, the last thread she didn't realize she'd already unraveled. She thought the boys would rally, that family ties trumped facts. But she missed something. When your sons grow up watching a man quietly shoulder the load without complaint, they notice when someone else starts shuffling that load and claiming it as theirs. Later that night, I heard her crying in the spare room, not wailing, but a low, measured crying like someone still trying to win a silent debate. I didn't check on her. She hadn't lost her family that night. She just learned who'd been holding it together all along. The next morning was still, not serene, not calm, just still. The kind that creeps in when a storm has ripped everything bare and left air too thick to breathe. Sarah hadn't said a word since her phone stopped pinging. Not when I passed her in the hall. Not when she made her coffee and forgot to slide the mug under the machine. Not even when she saw her name scrubbed from the Maple Grove Connect contributor list. She was a shadow drifting through her own life, and I was done chasing out ghosts she'd let in. At 8:46 a.m., I opened my laptop and clicked New Post. I'd spent 2 nights piecing it together. Not a tirade, not a jab, just a digital blueprint. 1 minute, 32 seconds. No music, no voiceover, just images. Slide 1, a smiling Sarah at a charity gala, date stamped below. Slide 2, a receipt from a local inn dated that same gala night, Sarah as the sole guest. Slide 3, her Facebook post with James, just reconnecting rare heart. Slide 4, a clip from James's 2020 divorce filing, citing infidelity, public record. Slide 5, an internal school board email thanking Sarah for her continued discretion during this delicate time. The time being now. Slide 6, a cropped screenshot of her text to a friend 2 years back. David's a rock, not a spark. I'll find fire again. Just not with him. No effects, no flair, just a final title card, full picture. I hit post. Then I stood, walked to the porch with a fresh cup of black coffee, sat in the same chair where she used to pose for photos that screamed she had it all figured out, and waited. I didn't need to refresh to know it had hit. The clues were everywhere. 3 cars slowed as they passed our street. A neighbor across the way paused her gardening, pretending not to glance over, her hose stuck mid-spray. Inside, I heard Sarah's footsteps dart to her phone. Then nothing. No slammed doors. No shouted accusations. Just the void. I didn't need to see her face. I'd already imagined it, eyes wide, mouth ajar, scrolling like someone digging through the ruins of a life she thought was bulletproof. The comments weren't vicious. They were worse, cool, precise, curious. Is this legit? Wow, that couple pic makes sense now. No surprise she resigned. I used to look up to her. This isn't tea. This is evidence. Nobody slung insults. They didn't need to. The facts shouted louder than any slur, sharper than any vendetta. It wasn't a hit job. It was her own timeline, her own words, her own choices woven together like entries in a ledger. She didn't come outside, didn't speak, didn't even text, just silence. Not the kind that pleads for mercy, the kind that knows it's too late to ask. She showed up unannounced, like a ghost trying to claw back into the light. The receptionist didn't even buzz me, just looked spooked and muttered, "There's a woman here for you." Before I could respond, Sarah was already halfway through my office door, trailing the wreckage of her shattered story like a tattered gown. She was dressed for pity, cozy cardigan, no makeup, hair pulled back just enough to hint at sleepless nights, the kind of look you wear when you want the world to think your wrongs were just missteps. I didn't stand. I didn't greet her. I kept reviewing the quarterly budget for a nonprofit I'd taken on as a consultant. Numbers were honest. Unlike her story. "I messed up," she said, closing the door behind her. I didn't look up. "Which time?" Her breath hitched. "David." She stepped closer, hands balled at her sides like a kid about to recite a forced apology. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said. "It was nothing with James. It was just. I don't know. I felt off. Unnoticed." That word, unnoticed. I closed the spreadsheet, leaned back slowly. "Unnoticed," I echoed. "You were in every picture, every event, every damn school board photo op. You weren't unnoticed. You were the main act." She inched forward. "I wasn't trying to replace you. I just wanted to feel valued." I nodded like she'd finally stumbled on something true. "Valued," I said. She nodded back, relieved, like I'd hit the right note. I stood then, slowly, not with flair, just finality, like a referee before calling the game. "I didn't do this to wound you, Sarah," I said. Her face softened for a split second. "I did it," I went on, "to stop being erased." She froze, like her body caught it before her mind did. Then her voice broke, barely a whisper. "You humiliated me." I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I leaned forward, arms on the desk, and said it quietly like truth doesn't need a megaphone to hit hard. No, I let the truth humiliate itself. She started crying then, small, choppy sobs that didn't touch her eyes. And I knew she wasn't grieving me. She was grieving control, the power to shape the narrative, to play the victim while drawing blood. But the crowd had already left. My phone buzzed again. Another notification. Another thank you from someone who'd watched our marriage from the sidelines and now saw they'd only ever gotten the curated clips. I grabbed my laptop, closed it with the crisp snap of a book shutting, and walked past her. She stepped aside, didn't try to stop me, didn't ask what was next, because she knew the performance was done and I wasn't staying for the encore.